Greetings, Dapplings, and welcome to a new first taste for the channel, where today we're going to be checking out Backpack Hero, an unlikely combination of roguelike, inventory management, and deck builder that recently entered early access and is available over on Steam. Links, as always, in the description down below. This is about as unlikely a mix of genres as you can imagine, and yet somehow it works better than I can probably hope to explain with words alone. It's absolutely going to be much easier to show than to describe. But before we dive into the game, I do want to point out that presently there are 3 characters. We've got Purse, we've got Tote, and we've got CR8, or Crate. And yes, the theming is amazing. I love it so much. But these 3 characters are separated not only graphically, but they each come with some pretty big mechanics differences. Today, I'm going to be playing with what I consider the default character, Purse, as she offers the most vanilla gameplay experience, which I think will convey the core gameplay loop best if this is your first time seeing the game. But if by the end of the video you decide that you enjoy what you saw and you'd like to see more, do let me know down below in the comments or with a like, and we may revisit the game for another run or 2, or maybe more, as there are more characters. I believe the next one is going to be coming out in September. And we may well play around with Crate, who, I'm going to be honest, has quickly become my favourite thanks to their very unique style of play. But with all of that said and done, let's just jump straight into the game. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be going with this version of Purse because Naruto Run, and that is pretty much the long and short of why we're going with Purse. There are different game modes, and as you can see, I've completed one. A couple of them are locked. There are actually lots of different game modes. Many of them are locked behind having completed an earlier stage. I've completed Standard, and for the sake of going with this, we're going to go with Standard again. There are different ones. Classic Matthew. I'm not really sure why it's called this. Well, actually, I am. There is a character that starts off, and it's kind of like Slay the Spire, if you think about it. You start with some sort of perk, but we're going to be going completely standard for this run. So let's jump into the adventure, and I will do my best to explain what's going on. Now, our backpack, pretty much the focus of this game is your inventory management. And as you can see, there is lots to do. You can slap things around, except you've got to make sure that something fits entirely within the grid for it to be useful. You can rotate everything, though, so you end up basically having to play inventory Tetris. Now, with that done, we can decide where we're going to go. We can go to the Bramble, or we can go to the Crypt. And if you're getting massive nostalgia flashbacks right now to ye olde days of like Chrono Trigger, etc., yeah, no, I am too. This music is probably the most Chrono Trigger music I have seen in any game that isn't Chrono Trigger. Now, we're going to be jumping down to the next level. I will go over how all of this actually works once we're actually in a fight and we're making use of it all. But we will have a map, and the objective is currently to get through 3 separate stages. Each one is made up of 3 parts. We're currently in the first stage, the Crypts, and fight a big bad at the end of it. We've got a combat here. We've got a couple of unknown events. We've got some things which are like locked doors. That's meant to be a keyhole, I think. The skulls, obviously, are foretelling of combat. We've got a merchant down there. I think that's probably a coin. An anvil over here is a forge where we can upgrade some of our gear. But we'll jump straight into a fight, and I'll get to show you a little bit of what's happening. Notice every item has an energy cost. We start the game with 3 energy, and well, pretty much these are our cards in effect, but we have to manage not just the cards that we have in our quote-unquote deck, that is the contents of our backpack, but how we have managed to slot that in. Proximity and adjacency really do start to matter. Right now it doesn't so much, but we will quickly find items where that is going to be the case. We've got a Rat Wolf over here. It tells us what they're going to be doing, so you're going to be attacking for 9 damage. The Muskrat Brigand over here is going to be attacking for 7. However, it is worth having a look at the stats for each creature, because, for example, this one, Cowardly, will flee if only cowardly enemies remain. So, since I do actually want its precious experience points, since leveling up is going to be a very important part of our inventory management as well, we're going to attack the Muskrat first. So we're going to open up with just a couple of attacks. Our sword here does 7 damage for 1 energy, and now we're out. But I do have a meal over here, which costs no energy to use, and will give me 2 energy. So we're just going to take you out. I'm just going to gobble down that meal, and the meal is now gone. Most consumables work that way. Once they are exhausted, then they just disappear from your backpack. Now, I've used a shield to add 7 block. I'm going to have to soak 2 damage, but that's fine. We've removed the muskrat, and that has reduced the damage incoming. Now, this turn, the rat wolf is going to block for 17. Blocking, even if it isn't completely absorbed, or rather used to absorb damage, doesn't persist past the turn. So for the next turn, they're going to have 17 block, and then the turn after that, they won't have any unless they refresh it. We've got a composite bow over here. Up in the top left, just beside the name, unfortunately, I can't move my mouse over it, but there's 2 little squares. That's telling me the shape of the block. Over here, we've got a 2x2 grid. Over here, we've got 3 in a line. So it's a 3x1. This is a 2x1. Composite bow, on use, fires the first arrow in each row to the right, assuming it's pointing to the right. If it's pointing down, it'll fire each arrow in, the first arrow in each column below the bow, and so on and so forth. So the rotation also matters. I could reorganize right now since there's nothing going on. It would take all of my energy to do it, but I would be able to then put that into my backpack. I'm not going to do that right now, but it's worth noting that you can do that. You can also always have a default attack, which will do 3 damage to the enemy and costs 1 energy, but generally speaking, you want to use a weapon for that, because weapons are usually going to have some more qualities to them. Now, that is a nice weapon. This is a machete. It does 3 damage to all enemies. However, it can only be used once each turn. So, not very useful for us. But since there's no hope of me getting through your block, I'm just going to use all of my turn to block up there so that your attack doesn't do anything to me again. And there we are, both shy of our blocks. There we go. Now again, I'm going to have to use the next turn once more to just defend up. I mean, I could punch through this, but there's no penalty to taking more turns to get things done. Very happy looking face there. And we level up. Now, the thing I love about the leveling up in this game, you don't increase stats or anything, you just make your backpack bigger, which in effect is increasing your stats in a way. Depending on how high your level is, you'll get more or less blocks to use for the leveler process. We'll unlock them in this configuration. There we go. And after every fight, you get some gubbins to take. We've got some gold there. Your gold takes up a space. It can stack, but it does take up a space. You're going to have somewhere to put it in your backpack. Now, there is an arrow here. If we had the bow, then we'd be able to make use of that. We've got a double halberd. If there is an adjacent weapon, this item gets -3 damage. But on use, deals 4 damage to all enemies, whereas this does 7 damage to just 1. They both cost 1 point, so depending on the situation, you might actually want to go for the double halberd. In fact, I think I would like to do that. Now, right now you can pick 3 items out of the loot from the combat. Anything that appears up here, such as the gold appeared up here, that's free. You can pop that in, and any item you've taken out of your backpack, you can just kind of put around this area, and you can just kind of reshuffle them. So don't worry too much about making room. I am totally going to take the double halberd. This shield gives 7 block. This shield also gives 7 block, but adjacent and diagonal armor gets +1 block. But the big difference is the amount of room it takes to be able to slot that into my backpack. So we can do something like that. I'm going to keep this wooden sword, since it is better for a single opponent attack. This is better if we've got more than one opponent on the field. And we can afford to take one other item. So, for example, this sapphire. This item floats, which means it will always navigate to the top row. But adjacent weapons get +1 damage, or I could pick up the Rose of Thorns, which means that every turn I will generate spikes of thorns, as per any other game. And if someone attacks me, then they will take 1 damage. But almost all status effects, including spikes, decrease by 1 point at the end of the turn. So this would only ever be 1 spike. It wouldn't accumulate over time, so I'm not as interested in that one right now. This is an electric wand. We don't have any mana right now to use for it, and we don't have a bow to use with the arrow. So I think the obvious choice here is this. Now, just to show you the way that floating works, it will always push its way up, and if it can't be at the top because I just overrode it, then it just drops out of the backpack entirely. But placing it there is going to increase the amount of damage that we can do with our weapon. So I think that's probably the best choice there. We're just going to have to leave that behind. And I can't pick up anything else because I've taken 3 items in total. Now, with that done, we can't go up there because I don't have a key, but we can check out what this is going to be. Spin and see what you get. Okay, well, we can spin the wheel, and at this point, you can back out if you particularly want to. There is one curse on the field. When your turn ends, this item is destroyed. It's a small curse, but we do have a dark whetstone. It can be used 1 time each turn and adds 1 week to self, and the weapons in this row gain 1 week this combat. Now, as I was mentioning, this item applies a status effect to us of 1 week. But at the end of the turn, that will decrease by 1, so it'll always go down unless we use it multiple times in a turn. But we can't this time because we can only use it once. However, it's applying a weak status to all weapons. That isn't per turn, that just means our weapon is now going to inflict the status of 1 week. So on the second turn, I could use the stone again, and now that weapon is going to be applying 2 week. And I can obviously use a weapon multiple times. So its potential there is that I'd be able to stack weakness on an enemy much faster than it would be building up on me. We've also got Philosopher's Stone. This is a legendary item. I think we're going to go with a free spin, sure. Please don't give me the curse. That would be embarrassing. No, okay. Actually, perfect. That's, in fact, what I wanted. All right, well, with that, I can place this here, and that will affect both of my weapons here. That's another way of this. Weak basically reduces the amount of damage you're going to do with any attack by the weak value. So it's another way of dealing with potential incoming damage. I can just weaken them to the point that it's manageable, or I can try and block it. That will afford us an ability to build up. Now, I haven't played this game enough to have any kind of strats in terms of builds that I'm aiming for. I usually just play at the moment and see what I get, and I try to do my best with it. And honestly, I have a lot of fun with that. Now, this enemy is going to create a curse. We'll add one of these curses, Curse of Honey. It is literally the only option it's going to have, and I know that that takes up 1 space. Now, curses are an interesting one. However, we're not going to deal with the bee, because if I kill the bee first, then the muskrat brigand will run away, and I want that tasty, tasty experience. However, our double halberd will hit both of them. So let's go ahead and do that. And, well, now, every time I hit the bee over here as well, adds 1 rage to the enemy, which means it's going to do more damage on the next turn. Now, we are going to soak 6 damage if I don't block, so I'm going to use that last point to block with. Notice that we don't passively heal. Now, what's going to happen here is a Curse of Honey. Now, I could skip taking the curse entirely, and I would take 2 damage straight up. That damage cost increases with every curse that you skip. It isn't reset by anything. So if you play a particularly long game, the cost of skipping curses can become ruinous if you do it a lot. So generally speaking, I try to accept a curse. This one will add 2 slow to self. Slow is a debuff to the amount that your blocking will add, but I can use it, and then the item is destroyed. So each turn this is going to add 2 slow, and then that slow will decrease by 1 each turn following. We're going to finish reorganizing there. And now it's my turn, and I've got 2 slow. Unfortunately, it's kind of bad news bears for us because we've got a lot of damage incoming. Now, I do want to disable that, but first and foremost, let's go for this. Have I got enough points? I do not have enough points to take out the muskrat, and I would rather not have to soak all of that damage, so I am actually just going to kill the bee. That means the muskrat's going to evacuate. Now, this will not be destroyed at the end of my turn. So if I don't want this to be hanging around in my next battle, because you can't just discard curses, much like any RPG. Once you're wearing it, it's kind of stuck to you and you can't easily remove it. I have to get rid of it in combat. Now, some of them will just run out on their own, but this one has to be used, and it'll cost me 1 energy to get rid of it for that to happen. But there we go. We've got another level up as well. Now, this time, I'm going to place 2 points over here, and you might be wondering, why are you doing that? Also, do note that you can only build off a tile that already exists, but there is reason to my madness in doing this. Now, that is going to limit the way I can place items, but that will be fine. We'll get to why I'm building in that way soon. Now, this Dark Whetstone affects all items in its row, so I believe... Oh, sorry, we need to accept that the battle's run, and then we can start moving to the front. Let's pop this down over here, and it'll still affect both of these weapons based on their current position. Now, we've got a couple of other items we can get. We've also earned this Mana Stone. This is not part of the rewards down here, so we don't have to worry too much about that one. We might actually take it. Mana stones will come in useful later. I would like the lucky ring, though. When combat ends, adds luck. Luck just gives you better results from your rewards. So we're going to pop that over there. I'm going to slide that up, and we're going to take these boots. Footwear to the right are disabled, but for each space above, this gets +1 block, and it applies that block passively each turn. So by placing it here, we're going to generate 4 block per turn regardless, unless, of course, we're slowed, in which case we'll produce less, or hastened, in which case we'll add more block per turn. Beyond this, we will take down, might as well. There's no reason to leave things behind. I could grab the Archer's Wand, create an ethereal arrow in this column. Now this requires 2 mana. Now the way that magic works in this is actually quite interesting, in that you basically create like a circuit, a mana network. Items that are conductive will allow mana to pass through them, and effectively the mana stones are like batteries. Now these only replenish at the end of a combat, or in between a full combat, unless you have some means of replenishing it in a fight. They're effectively just batteries of power that you can draw on, as long as they are connected through a series of items which are conductive. It's quite an interesting way of playing around with mana, actually. I quite like it. Let's grab... Sure, we'll grab a consumable. If in doubt, and you have the space, find an item which has got the most rare quality. So they go from common, which isn't mentioned, to uncommon, which is green, rare, which is yellow, and legendary, which is purple or pink. I kind of would like to bring that along, but I'm not going to sacrifice any of the other items we've got there. So we finished choosing. Now with that done, we can find out what this is. Okay, so it's a little healing shrine. I can put in 1 gold and get additional 5 max HP, or I can steal gold. No, I'm not going to defile a health shrine. Thank you very much for your help. Now we can head over here, and you can most events you can have a look at what they are without having to choose to interact with it. So for example, the badger over here, for 8 gold we'll add 2 block to an armor. For 10 gold we'll add 2 blocks to a shield, or for 20 gold we'll add 1 haste to a shield. This is a big deal. However, I don't have anywhere near that kind of money. We are probably not going to get it based on the amount of enemies that we have available. However, there is a shop down here, and each shop will allow you to sell up to 3 items. So, you know, there is a possibility here. Now, I could just dump a bunch of poison on our enemies, and I'm going to need 1 space available for the Curse of Honey. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 6 poison. Poison will take, the enemy will take health damage. This bypasses armor, by the way, at the end of the turn. That's very important, because certain things happen at the end of a turn, certain things happen at the beginning. For example, the Curse of Honey will apply slow at the beginning of a turn. Generally speaking, regeneration will happen at the beginning of a turn, not at the end of a turn. And that really does matter quite a lot. But once again, we're just going to pop in as much damage as we can. Now, the interesting thing with poison specifically, from what I can see, poison sickness will cause the enemy not to take any action at all. But poison sickness triggers when the amount of poison is higher than their remaining health, I believe. I haven't really been able to concretely for science this, but that's my working theory. Now, we are unfortunately going to soak 3 damage here, but that should be fine. There we go. And now you're going to skedaddle on this turn, unless I can say no, which thankfully I can. So there we go. Also, they wouldn't have been running because of the poison sickness again. So there we are. We managed to get all of the HP there. Ah, okay, so here's why I made the steps. Helmets. Much like boots, and in fact, quite a lot of armor items have this quality to them, they have to be in a certain position. So helmets to the right are disabled, so you can't have helmets in the same row. Now that isn't, and this is something that confused me for a little while, when it's saying like helmets to the right are disabled, it isn't saying that any helmet to the right of this column, but specifically helmets to the right on this row will be disabled. And it's the same for boots. So I have left a spot here. Now this needs to be at the top, otherwise it's disabled. You know, effectively your helmet is at the top of your person, unless your head is somehow below your torso. I'm not going to judge, but, you know, generally speaking, that isn't the case with our avatars here. And this, each turn will add 4 spikes and will also add 1 block. Now, we're starting to get to a point where, realistically, I would kind of like these items to be around the shield, which would inherently add 1 block to it, because that block will be added each turn. So I could put it here, but the consequence is that I would lose a little bit of damage on my weapon, so I'm not going to do that right now. But, for example, I could have the helmet here and another helmet here, and they would be fine with each other, because they're not directly to the right, and as far as each one is concerned, they're at the top of their current column, because that is as high as this column goes. This is the highest space on this column, so on and so forth. It is a way of being able to eke out the most you can out of a bunch of helmets. We've also got a chipped sword over here. Now this one costs nothing to use the first turn, 1 to use on the second turn, 2 to use on the third turn. So right now I think our wooden sword is the better option, but this one in fact is a little bit better because it's smaller. So I can slot that in there. Additionally, we got another mana stone that I could have if I really want to, but I've not got anything that's using mana just yet, so I think I'll... Well, that being said, actually, here we are. Speak of the devil. My first wand. This is conductive. It adds 2 regen to self. This is a way that we can heal. However, it's gonna require that I squeeze things around a little bit. We don't have much room to play with right now, but I really would like this wand because it is a reliable per combat, not per turn, way of me adding 2 regen, which would effectively give us 3 health. So the first turn it'll regenerate 2 health, the second turn it'll regenerate 1, and then by the third turn the status effect would have decayed completely. Okay, I'm happy with that reshuffle. I think this is an okay build for the now. We can also check out the shop. Want to see what you have? You've got a massive bow. Archery in this game is ridiculously overpowered. Or it can be. Quite a lot of things in this game can be. This is a game about, you know, the interesting synergies, much like most deck builders. The fun is in finding overpowered synergies of your abilities. We've also got a key there, and there are 2 places that I could use a key, but... There's nothing here that I really want to sell, sadly, and I really don't have the room to do too much, so unfortunately we're just going to have to pass this one up. I guess the one thing I could sell is the wooden blade for 3 gold. That would give us enough to get something at the forge. But that would leave us with the double halberd, which doesn't do a lot of single target damage. Still, let's just go and refresh our memory of what the forge offers for 10 gold. 2 block to a shield, or for 8 gold, 2 block to armor. And the nice thing about armor is it's passive. Ultimately, I would love to have haste, but sadly that's not a thing we're going to be able to go for. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sell this sword to get 10. I'm actually going to go for the 8 on armor rather than that, but that should be fine. Now, at this stage, I can place this over there, and we're going to get the little bonus there. So let's just shuffle some things around. I think that makes for a better setup here. Eventually, I would like to have another weapon here, but thankfully, this is adjacent and diagonal. I really should say, because adjacent to me means diagonal as well, but in this case, it means orthogonal. So, you know, north, south, east, west, if you want to think of it as compass directions, and diagonal, obviously, northeast, south, west, so on and so forth. But since this effectively is explicitly saying that it'll affect both diagonal and orthogonal, then we can just have that one there and still have the 2 spots, and maybe later on we'll have another weapon. I guess it doesn't really matter for now, though. But that is going to be the best one for me. So we're going to add 2 block to armor, and it will be the helmet. There we go. So this will now passively add 4 block and 4 spikes every turn. And again, because the spikes decay at only one level of spikes a turn, this is just going to keep ramping up the damage that people are going to do by attacking me in melee. I'm very, very fond of this helmet, as you can probably tell. Alright, we've got a slug here, which is going to do 6 damage. You're going to block, so I don't really need to worry about you over much. Now, this doesn't require energy to... that is the green energy to use. This one runs off mana, so I'm just going to spend that mana, and that's it. That these 3 tiles, that they exist purely to be cast once. Still, it is, as I said, reliable regeneration, so I'm fine with having that for now. But as you can see there, we actually gained 8 block passively. So I didn't need to block at all this turn because they weren't capable of doing more than 8 damage across both characters, because this one is going to be focusing on block. So you're going to take an additional 4 damage from my spikes as well, which is quite glorious. You're now going to add a level 5 regeneration, and you're going to do 9 damage. So I do need to block if I want to absorb this entire attack, which I do. So let's go ahead with that one. I'm trying to get my health back up to full. I don't need to take any unnecessary damage on top. But there we go. This getting through this 13 block is going to be, you know, ridiculously hard. I don't need that one. And honestly, again, it doesn't really help me to attack with that, but there we go. They killed themselves on our spikes, which is glorious. Right, okay, so we've now got a smaller bow. We've also increased our gold a little bit. I can pick up some consumables, or I can pick up a new wooden blade. Now, is there anything that really is an unusual, uncommon item that I could sell for more? No. Chainmail. Each turn adds 5 block. When an adjacent item is destroyed, this item gets 2 block for this combat. So it's not a permanent thing, but it will last through every turn of that combat. Now, that can actually be... You can build a setup where intentionally you're going to be destroying items on the regular in order to empower other items. That is especially a potent build for the character crate, and maybe we'll check that out in another video. But right now, I think we'll just take the focused damage there, which does mean that, unfortunately, because I can't have weapons next to each other, if there is an adjacent weapon, this one doesn't do as well. So if I really wanted that to work, is this one just adjacent? Yeah, it's only adjacent, so I couldn't rely on diagonals there. Sadly, this one isn't getting a buff, because if I were to move the helmet, it would lose the bonus block from the shield. And right now, I actually like that more. Having 8 block by default is just very, very nice. Right, well, we don't have anything else to do here, but we can check this out. Now, this is a vision of danger. This is basically telling me ahead of time what the boss is going to be. Because each area is split into 3 separate maps, it's not like Slay the Spire, where you can look at the end of the current map and see what boss you're going to face. So you have to check out these visions of danger to get an idea. I don't know all of the bosses, so I don't really plan around them. There's a little bit of planning, I guess, for the ones that I'm aware of. But outside of those, yeah, I'm a new enough player that there's still a lot unknown to me in the game. So, by the way, if you have any tips, very, very warmly welcomed. Now, this snail over here is going to poison. You can click on any enemy to decide who you're going to be attacking directly. Really dislike the fact that you're going to curse. You will curse of slime. So I'm going to be losing something in this. I guess of all the things I'm willing to lose, it would be this one. Or this one. I guess only 1 damage, and also the fact it's floating means it's kind of awkward to place. Whereas this always gives me an ability to heal, which I'm very, very fond of. Also, we're going to need at least 1 extra block. There we go. Now, in terms of just raw damage output, this one's better single target damage by 2 points, but this one, you know, vastly dwarfs the raw damage output, simply because it's hitting all of them for the same amount of damage. Right, okay. Each turn lose 2 HP. On use, this item is destroyed, or when combat ends, this item is destroyed. It's fine. Skipping it for 3 damage when this is only going to do 2 damage to us seems silly. Alright, so I finished reorganizing. And we're immediately going to use a point to get rid of that, so that I don't lose any health, because it looks like that one was going to apply it on the turn end. Now again, I need to block in order to avoid the worst of the incoming damage. Will still take a little bit, sadly, but it's fine. At this stage, once again, let's continue winding them down. Though having to spend a point each turn to avoid that does mean that each turn I am ending up with, sadly, 1 extra point of damage. But we finished reorganizing once again. Got a little bit of health there. There we go. And get rid of you. Oh, now this one's actually going to be a much bigger attack. Okay. Well, I'm still not quite there. being able to take them out. And they're also healing quite a lot, which is vexing. I think ultimately I need to focus on taking this one down here, because these constant curses are really affecting the amount I can remove them for. Plus, the thing you would have noticed there is it curses at the end of its action. So it attacked first and died on the spikes. The fact that this is accumulating spikes is what's carrying us right now. And 2 of those. There we go. We level up as well. Fantastic. Right, well, we're going to continue that area out there. But at this point, I'm going to start filling this little area in a little bit more. There we go. Another thing I could have done is lowered this area by 2 points so I could bring the boots down and thus get an extra point of block out of them. But for now, this is fine. I'm going to move the wand down a little bit further. Actually, no, we will keep that one there. But I'm going to move the money down. Eventually, we may end up with all helmets going down there. I'm going to take the piggyback. This one creates 2 gold at the end of combat. Obviously, a very nice one. What we've got over here is a wooden blade. It does 7 damage, but I can use it multiple times. This dagger can only be used once, but does 8 damage and adds 2 poison to the enemy. I think that is very much worth it. Now, the problem with this item is I need to place it somewhere away from this. It can happily be adjacent to the dagger, so what we'll do is we'll just shuffle those around so that if I've used the dagger, but I do want just a single target damage, I can then default to the wooden blade. I can take one more item, and there's no reason not to. Let's see if any of these are uncommon. They are not. This one allows me to heal a bit, so I'll grab that, and I'll probably just eat it in the next fight. Right, we can go to the healer. Now, for a little bit of gold, I can increase my max health. I'm going to hold off on that one, though, because I don't know how much or what will be available at the forge. So, onwards to our next fight. Now, you're going to do a lot of damage, which is great, because Spikes is going to hit you 3 times, because you're attacking 3 times. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some regeneration. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to straight up heal. And next, I think we're just going to block. We're going to block twice. Now let's have a look at you. Every turn, you'll add 2 rage to the enemy. So rage increases the amount of damage it can do. Bad news bears for us. So instead, I'm going to use the last turn there just to inflict 8 damage and add 2 poison to this opponent. You're going to do enough damage. You're just going to hurt yourself on me, so I'm fine with that. There we go. And we've managed to block all of the incoming damage there. But again, this is increasing it. Now, this turn they're going to spend some of their turn blocking, which is quite a nice one. Once again, though, we're going to attack there. Going to add in a block, but now we're free to do something else. And because I am quite concerned, because this is just going to continue scaling, we're going to go for the single target damage to try and take them out of the fight as soon as we can. They're going to just kill themselves on us. I don't really need to worry about them. 21 points of damage left there. Let's get another block in. If we really want to avoid taking much damage here, I do need to block again, so we will. There we go. And both of them are down. Fantastic. Aha. Okay, so we've got an interesting choice here. Also, keys. Check what can be unlocked with keys. There are 2 chests of valuables. Now, it's always useful to be able to access a chest, but we're kind of faced with a difficult choice here. You see this bronze breastplate. Adjacent and diagonal armor gets +2 block, and adjacent weapons get +1 damage. This is a very, very nice bit of kit there. Really, maybe if I'd placed an extra space there, I could have moved that across. We're in a bit of a rough position here. I'm going to say, let's shuffle everything around. I would very, very much like to keep that. This is only affecting this weapon right now, and if I take out that mana stone, I do lose the ability to regen, which ultra sucks. I can place this dagger there, though. If I pop that across, right now we are buffing as much as we possibly can. There is a part of me that considers placing it up here, though. But this will only give +1 damage, and this, well, I don't know. We're not really using that so much yet. So I think maybe having the passive boost to our block is more useful for us in the immediate. It does pain me to say goodbye to the wand, though. Right now, if I want to keep the wand, I would have to have it here along with the mana stone, which means I wouldn't be able to pick up key. Ultimately, I think we're going to go for the key. We'll keep that one there. I haven't actually made use of it yet, but I think that it will come in useful later on, especially for the much more high damage fight. I want to strip away their ability to do damage to me. The other options we have, warm drink here, which heals, but then is destroyed. When destroyed, though, is replaced with an empty cup, and this is an empty cup. It's a projectile, so you drink the contents and then throw the cup at the enemy. I love that idea. But I think we're going to go with this. We'll discard the mana stone since we're discarding the wand, and sure, I'll bring along the warm drink since again that will allow me to heal. It's not as reliable and as the wand, but it will do. Now, I would very much like to go and see what we've got in the shop. You've got a legendary item there. It floats and stabs. For each adjacent or diagonal structure. Now, structures are very interesting items. And you have to build them up for them to be useful. We've got a guarding band. Ooh, now we're talking. That's a permanent +1 haste. Which, again, haste increases the amount of block that we'll get from anything. But it would increase it doesn't sum up all the blocks. So, for example, we don't first generate 6 block, and then 3 block, and then 6 block, and then 7 block, sum that up, and then add 1. We add 1 per item that is adding block. So that is very strong contender. Let's go and check on the Forge and see what they can do for 20 coins. Okay, here we go. Adds 1 haste to a structure. Adds 2 block to armor. I mean, honestly, it would really come down to getting a structure and adding haste to it, or getting that band. If I could do both of them, that would be amazing, because that would mean stacking haste over time, which is a very, very powerful way of playing. But ultimately, I think of all the things, we're going to have the most chance of picking this up. I'm going to just go ahead and sell the drink. That being said, if I sold the dark whetstone, it's a really nice item though. We are actually going to sell this. Now, generally speaking, you want to sell the most rare items because you get more from it, and you can only sell 3 things per merchant, but I will go ahead and sell that. We're then going to use a key to enter this area, and promptly we're going to go and grab whatever's in here and possibly sell some of it. Let's see, any particularly good items? We've got the tilted sword. Deals 7 damage. This gets +1 damage as combat. Oh. Well now. So, while it doesn't quite do as much damage as the dagger does, and this also adds a poison. Now, I can only use that once, but this one gets stronger the more it's used. I kind of want to keep it, honestly. As much as it would get me a lot of money. That I wasn't expecting, but alright. I mean, if we did want to sell it, that would pretty much get that for us straight away. Though at this point, I could sell the dagger, and we would then make enough money with the piggy bank, since that is guaranteed to generate extra cash from the fight. And each fight is going to generate extra cash. I think this will basically guarantee us 4 cash out of this. We're just going to go ahead and use 1 point to block, and then I'm going to use the dark whetstone for a turn, and then we're going to attack with the tilted sword. We're going to apply a little bit of weak over there. Now, we did a little bit less damage because we ourselves were weakened, but that's fine. But that has affected every single attack they were doing, not just the sum total. It didn't just take 1 point away, it took 3 points away. So that was a particularly useful item against this enemy. And the glorious thing is, although that 1 week has run off from us now, I can apply this again, and now this weapon is doing 2 weak per attack. Now at this point, I passively can defend against this much damage. So I'm just going to use the 2 points there, and yeah, this is already over for you. There we go. And we'll just finish you off like that. Now we are up to 21. Up to 24. The money from the battle and plus the cash from the piggy bank. Now let's have a look. A frothy drink, when destroyed, places with an empty cup. Heals 10 HP and adds 1 energy. That's actually pretty nice. We'll definitely sell that. Adjacent weapons get +3 damage. Now, we can do a bit of something here. In that I could place that. Oh, it's actually, I think it's adjacent down, isn't it? Yes, it is. Oh, that's a shame. Not as useful then as I was hoping. Still, if I were to place these around in this configuration, then I'd be able to apply that extra damage. +3 damage there. It's now at a 10 base damage, which is actually quite significant. We'll bring the piggy bank along, and we're going to go and sell the frothy drink. This is actually turning into quite a nice setup here. Okay, let's be on our way. We're not going to take that mana stone. So let's go and sell the frothy drink, just because that's a lot of cash right there. Tunk, up to 30. 32 would have gotten us haste. We obviously aren't going to be going for that, but I will spend the 20 on getting a permanent self-haste. That is glorious. Was there anything we could grab for 10? Let's have a look. 5 gold, add conductive to armor, or for 8 gold, add 2 block to armor. Let's go ahead and continue. Well, we could continue buffing up the helmet. We're definitely not going to be getting rid of that, whereas there are plenty of different chest pieces that I might go for, but I'm pretty much going to be keeping the spiked helmet. That stacking thorns is just way, way too useful. But this now adds 8 block passively, which is glorious. And with that, time for us to move on. The Crypt Finale. Now, again, this is just the finale of the first act, if you like, of 3 acts. But we go straight to a boss. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. Now, this boss has quite a few things. Okay, Ultra Knight. The ultimate machine, perfectly crafted and impervious to all damage. It adds 5 rage per turn, so its damage is going to be increasing by 5 each turn. Oh, well 4 each turn, because you've got to account for the loss of 1. It also starts with... Oh, this is actually each combat. Never mind, it's not per turn. So it does that once. But it also started with 999 Tough Hide. And Tough Hide will reduce projectile damage by 50%. Thankfully, we're not using projectiles, so that's not an issue. But I am going to need a little bit of extra block there. And then we're going to add a little bit of extra weak. And then follow up with just 10 damage. And that's all we're going to do this turn. They're now going to add 10 block, and they're going to do 14 damage. We're already passively protected beyond that. And in addition, we can pull that down by quite a lot, since this blade is now adding 2 wick per strike, and we're striking twice a turn. There we go. This boss is going down shockingly fast. Now we're going to add 3 weakness per turn. This is not going well for you. There we go. However, like all good bosses, it has another stage. Right, so we've got the muscle. Or actually, let's start at the beginning. Leg man. He never skips leg day. We've got the muscle. He'll do anything the head honcho demands. Now, this enemy is a defender. Anyone behind them cannot be targeted. That's an important point, because we can't target the head honcho. Head honcho. Me order, me master. I run this dungeon. Really? Is that a Master Blaster quote? My lord. You'll get 5 experience for defeating this one, but it looks like they're going to add dodge to all enemies. Dodge just means that the next attack will be completely deflected. You're the only one we really need to worry about in terms of damage right now. Not that you're going to be able to do a whole lot, especially with that much weak and this many spikes. Honestly, if you were to attack me even once, you would die. But you're about to add 2 rage and 3 haste to everyone. And considering you're defending, that's kind of unpleasant for us, realistically. Though, that being said, honestly, the stacking spikes are going to stack faster than they're going to be able to put any kind of shielding to deflect from it. And even attacking for 0 damage will still trigger my spikes. So it's game over for these guys. There we go. And then follow that up. There we go. We win. And with a level up as well. Oh, gloriousness. I will accept all of these. And we will also add... Well, we could add a little bit more room to the side, I suppose. But I think we're going to take... actually... Can I undo that? Yes, I can. Marvellous. We are, of course, going to add a little bit more down below. There we go. Get items. Slide that down. Now, the problem here is that getting the helmet to be affected when I'm bringing this down means I can't have them right next to the bronze breastplate. But thankfully we can just shimmy that down a little bit and it still maintains this because the helmet doesn't care how far from the bottom row it is. Some helmets do. So it's really, I'm positioning all of the armor now based on where the boots are because they're the ones that get the increased block based on how much room there is above them. That being said, it does mean that this no longer gets the same bonus, but that's fine. This still counts. And if I place this over there, it still counts even more, which is perfect. And slide that up. Now, got a couple of items here. The Fluffy Cotton, this is conductive, -2 to mana cost of adjacent and diagonal wands. Basically, these are boss loot, so you can think of these as epic artifacts. Got the Barbell. This item is heavy, +1 to the energy cost of all weapons and bows. But for each space below this item gets +50% bonus damage. All weapons get that. So for each, like if we move these higher up, for each space below this item, so if I were to take this and place it here, then from the Barbell this is getting +50% damage, but it's going to cost more too right now. But if I were to move it up there, deals 21 damage because the Barbell is adding 200% damage to it. That's rather good. I'm not going to lie. That's actually very, very tasty. That being said, I am having to shimmy it around. So that's from 7 damage to 20 damage. Or I can have the Belt of Knives. All weapons get this effect applied. On use, adjacent weapons get +3 damage only for this turn, not combat, so it doesn't accumulate through the combat and it isn't permanent. I think the Barbell is the better option here, realistically speaking. Which does mean that this can't be next to the armor, which is a sadness, but I think that is the better play here. The amount of damage this gets. Let me just make sure that it isn't better. Yeah, it's caring only about this column. So now we've got 2 items in this column that care about the distance from the top or toward the bottom. With the boss loot, you can only take one of them, sadly. Though that does mean that this one can't be above it anymore, which is a shame, because that +3 damage was glorious. I wonder if we placed it, for example, here. That would still take me up to 20, and then I could place that there. That gives me 28 damage. Ye-gats. Well, at this point, we'll just shimmy everything around. I think that is a decent enough position for now. That is actually quite ridiculous. The Barbell, a bit of an awkward one. Now, heavy, opposite of floats. It sinks. But you can still rotate it, so it can balance on its end like that, or it can be on the bottom. Or it can have a single tile. Like, it isn't going to pitch over the edge, for example. So that still works okay for us. Yeah, being there and having the citrine, that actually helps out quite a lot, even though it's slightly less of an advantage there. That 150 is still better than 200% with the added citrine there, because there's more to work with. So that's amazing. We've almost got 30 damage weapon. But there we are, finished choosing. Now at this point, if we had a key, we would be able to go to the Enchanted Swamp, but we don't, so we're going to have to go to the Deep Cave. Let's see what we've got in here. We have got... this is basically, well, it's a ring, And rings are important because there are some enchantments that only go on rings. But this one is effectively shield, but uses mana. So for 1 energy, we can add 4 block. This also would be affected by haste. We've also got a water flask, which gives us some more energy. We've got a herb, which does nothing but can be destroyed. Again, some items will react to items being destroyed, and it can be destroyed for 0 energy. So that is worth remembering. But there's nothing really here that I want. I guess we'll bring this along just in case we end up building for mana. But with that, all that remains is to go down the stairs. And we are on to the deep cave. Unfortunately, we're all out of time. So I hope this first taste has given you a taste for what it is about this game that I find absolutely Moorish. I basically can't put it down. If you're a fan of roguelites, especially deck builders, then there's an awful lot to love about this. But honestly, just the quirky kind of mechanic around the Tetris-like positioning of items, and the fact that it isn't just fitting them in your backpack, it is also where they are in relation to other things, where they are in relation to the general shape of your backpack. All of that matters. It's such a fun puzzle game with, you know, the added benefit of then also being a turn-based battler as well. I really do hope you've enjoyed this though, and do let me know down in the comments if you would like to see a bit more. And if there's enough interest, then I'm sure we will see some more videos in the future. But that's going to be it from me and from Backpack Hero for now. Thank you ever so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic day. But until next time, do take care.